Welcome to Through the Valley. This is your host, Bahar, executive coach, author, and speaker. In the last episode, we explored shadow, executive presence, and the three phases of leadership development: integration, internal architecture, and inner authority. If you haven't listened to the last episode, I would strongly urge you to do that so that you have the foundational information for this episode to make more sense for you. Today, we're going to make the information you received in the last episode practical, because insights without application doesn't change anything. So in this episode, I want to help you do two things: identify where you're stuck and show you how to become unstuck, how to move forward. Let's start with phase one, integration. Integration is all about psychological and emotional processing. It addresses unconscious patterns of relating to yourself, to others, and to situations. Patterns that were formed very early in life, between the age of 1 and 3 to be exact. And at this age, we don't have access to conscious processing. We don't analyze, we don't reflect. We learn through mirroring, mimicking, and meaning making. And those early experiences, especially around lack, engulfment, and enmeshment, shape how we relate to ourselves and others. Over time, these patterns solidify into identity. They become automatic. And as we move through life, we unconsciously look for evidence that confirms them. So when something happens, your mind recognizes a pattern, your body activates a state, and in that moment, there's no space for analysis. You don't question it. You become it. You're convinced that what you feel is caused by what's happening outside of you, just like it was in your early years. Integration is the process of breaking free from these automatic, irrational patterns. It's the movement from victimization to true sovereignty. This is where attachment patterns are transformed. Fear of engulfment, fear of losing identity, blurred boundaries, and a sense of not enough. And they evolve into relational intelligence once we do the work. When you're stuck in integration, survivor strategies are dominant. We talked about them at length in the last episode. Here's a quick recap of what the survivor strategies are really asking for. Behind the survivor strategies, there's fear of loss, abandonment, humiliation, betrayal, and injustice. And they drive impulsive reactions, blurring our ability to discern and be present when an experience is taking place. And this looks like being triggered often, reactivity in familiar situations, even impulsivity, nervous system dysregulation, exhaustion, burnout, depression, imposter syndrome, perfectionism, and grandiosity. Practically, this looks like you can't stay in a role long enough to benefit from it. You feel like you're always getting the short end of the stick. You fall apart when there is a negative experience. You struggle with boundaries, with yourself and with others. You mismanage your energy. You feel resentment in situations that don't fully justify it. You overthink everything. And your recovery time after an emotional setback is long, too long. You lose buoyancy. States become moods, and moods become personality. If you find yourself stuck in this phase, here's how you create movement forward. There are 3 steps I want you to consider. Step 1 is interrupt the pattern in real time, not later, not after the fact, in hindsight, in the moment. You must become present to the pattern in order to do something about it. Step 2 is separate trigger from truth. What you feel is real, but is it always accurate? Because when you reflect, you notice it is not. Step 3 is take responsibility for your internal state, not blame, responsibility. Because regulation, self-regulation, is leadership. And you don't need to be leading others to develop your leadership. We need that for leading ourselves as well. Here's a practical exercise for you. The next time you feel triggered, I want you to simply pause, name the emotion, name the pattern. Can you recognize it? Then ask yourself, what is this trying to protect me from? Stay there. The question creates space, and in that space, clarity appears. Because the truth is, when these patterns are activated, we are trying to protect ourselves. That's why they're called survival strategies. And if in the old days, survival strategies were necessary to safeguard us from the saber-toothed tiger, nowadays, what we are most afraid of are really paper tigers and not the real ones. The space you take clarifies the work that needs to be done. Let's move on to internal architecture. This phase is all about building depth and skill. Once integration begins, you stabilize. Now you enter architecture. This is where you build. You build depth, skill, frameworks, standards, values, perspectives. This is where most high performers feel completely at home because it feels productive. But architecture has a trap. You can stay here indefinitely. You become a perpetual learner. You understand everything. You can articulate everything. You can guide others. But you're not applying your structures to yourself. At this stage, survival strategies become more subtle. They don't look like reactivity anymore. They look like over-preparation, over-analysis, endless refinement, delayed action, and procrastination. You hide behind your knowledge because stepping into visibility requires risk. And risk activates fear. When you're stuck at internal architecture, it looks like consuming more than you implement, feeling not ready yet, waiting for more clarity, advising others but not moving yourself. You're informed, but you're not embodied. You're capable, but not activated. And here's how you move through stuckness at internal architecture. 3 steps. Step 1, shift from learning to execution. Insights without action in stagnation. Step 2, shorten the gap between knowing and doing. Act before you feel ready. Ready, go. Step 3, build tolerance for visibility. Confidence is not built before action. It is built through action, even if it's not perfect action. Ability precedes mastery. This is the path to building capacity. Here's a practical exercise for you. Choose one concept you've recently learned and apply it within 24 hours. Not perfectly, but publicly. Even if it is uncomfortable, that's how architecture becomes embodiment. Let's move on to internal authority. This is where we master presence. Authority is not built. It's not. Authority is embodied. It is the natural expression of integrated shadows and lived architecture. Authority is presence that does not collapse under pressure, in challenge and change. It is stability. It is coherence. It is self-trust in motion. Not perfection, but trust. Here's the truth. If you skip integration, authority will never stabilize. Without internal architecture, authority becomes a lie. When you're stuck at inner authority, it looks like inconsistent presence, confidence that fluctuates under pressure. One moment you're strong, next moment you're falling apart. One moment you are balanced, next moment you are a volcano. Overcompensation and withdrawal. Knowing what to do, but not holding it. Not standing in it. Knowing your values, but in times of challenge and change, not expressing them. And in some cases, authority becomes pure performance or control. Because when shadow is not integrated, power feeds the ego. And ego creates distortions. Here's how you move forward if you're stuck in inner authority. Step 1, you must return to the integration phase. If presence is unstable, something underneath is unresolved. Step 2, practice real-time awareness. Presence is built in interaction, not in theory. So when you're moving through an experience, whether it is in a circumstance with another individual, you're leading or self-leading, solving a conflict, negotiating a contract, become present to your own tendencies and the energy you're experiencing, the energy in motion in the very situation that you're in. So you can become present to your own sense of presence and what may be lacking. Step 3 is anchor into self-trust. You don't need to be perfect. You need to be steady. Here's a practical exercise for you. Before your next important interaction, I want you to pause. Feel your body, slow your breath, and ask yourself, what energy am I bringing into this space? Do I need to shift the energy, or can I lead with it? In closing, the question becomes, where are you stuck? Integration, architecture, or authority? Because each phase requires something different. Integration requires processing. Architecture requires action. And authority requires stability. If this resonates and you're ready to deepen this work in a structured way, My executive presence immersive and the online self-paced leadership magnetism program are designed for exactly this journey. You will find the links to both of them and to my website in the show notes. Before you start applying any of these tools, I want you to pause for a moment and sit with what you've just heard. Notice how you feel. Not what you think, but what you feel. Notice the magnitude of the shift you're wanting to create. Because this is not small work. This is identity work. It's simple, but it is not easy. And here's what I want you to remember. If this were a home you had to clean, you wouldn't start with every room, would you? That would overwhelm you. You would start with one corner. You would sort it out, organize it, bring order to it. And then you would move to the next. This work is no different. Don't try to fix everything at once. Start small, be patient, and be consistent. Shadow integration happens in layers, not all at once. And as you move through these layers, your resilience grows, your awareness sharpens, and your discernment deepens. And with each layer, you gain more capacity to hold yourself and to lead others. True authority is not something you arrive at overnight. It's something you build over time with intention, with responsibility, with consistency. So don't rush this. Stay with it. Because the more you commit to this process, the more you become someone who can hold power without losing yourself. And that is leadership. And as always, we don't go around the valley. We go through it. For now, I leave you with this. Shift your psychology to shift your energy and shift your leadership. Until next time.